Welcome to another GTN Coaches Corner where we answer all your coaching related triathlon questions. So in today's show, we are going to look at how much strength work is too much for a time crunched athlete. How do I build my running to a half marathon if I'm a young runner? Which bike is best for hilly courses? And should I be using run power? And finally, is my running make me a better cyclist than actually cycling does? Let's answer all your questions. Okay, our first question today is from Pedro PCN100, and he says, #GTN Coaches Corner. I'm an intermediate triathlete. This season, I'm mostly focusing on racing 70.3s, targeting to finish races around 4 hours, 45 minutes. I have a very busy work life, and training during the week can be pretty tough. So I do 45 minute to 1 hour sessions in the morning and try to fit 45-minute strength sessions 3 times a week in the evening. My current goal is to reduce my course time to maybe qualify for the 70.3 World Champs. So my question is, should I give up my strength sessions and add more swim, bike, run sessions during the week? In the past, I had a few injuries related to stress, but overall, I'd say my strength is okay. Okay, 3 strength sessions of 45 minutes a week when you are time crunched and you're struggling to fit in the swimming and biking and running, I'd say yes, you could probably reduce the amount of strength work you're doing and increase your biking and running and maybe even your swimming in that time. I would try and make some strength gains on the swim, bike and run more specific in the actual sessions. So you do a bit more hours of swimming and biking and running, and then do low cadence for the bike, paddles for the swim, and hill running for the run to get that sport-specific strength and concentrate on working all those core muscles while you're actually doing the sport that you're doing will be more specific than doing a good 2 hours and 15 minutes a week of actual strength training. Now, I'm not saying completely get rid of the strength training, but you can probably fit in 10 to 15 minutes 3 times a week around your other sessions, or even do 1 full 45-minute session a week to keep your strength going and maintain your strength without actually taking so much time out of your general total training hours to do strength work. It's not specific enough, and if you do have specific limiters on the swim, bike and run, which it sounds like you do, and you are going for your PB to qualify for World Champs, then I'll definitely make it as specific as possible and try and fit in more swimming, bike and running and reduce the amount of time you're spending doing strength training. Strength training is great and it's very good for injury prevention, but it should be something you do additionally, not instead of your swimming and biking and running. Okay, next question is from Isha Saini, and they say, I'd really appreciate some advice. I started running a year ago for 3 months, but then I stopped. I started again 2 months ago, and I can run 10 kilometers in 1 hour and 15 kilometers in 1 hour, 40 minutes. I'm currently 15 years old, and I'm trying to reach a half marathon. Any tips or training plans? Thank you so much. Well, first, I would say, stop trying to reach the half marathon. It seems like you're stuck in this trap of more is better, longer is the goal, to run as far as you can. And that's not necessarily the goal, especially when you're only 15 years old. I would say you should bring this right back and change your goals a little bit. Running as far as possible is not the ultimate goal. You can try that when you're old and slow, and you can add some mileage and try and get to your furthest distance, maybe even do some ultras. But now, at the age of 15, you should be really working on your strength and your speed and your form when you're running. And the way you do this is by focusing on much shorter stuff. So I would rather than targeting trying to go further, try to go faster at the distances you can already run. Maybe pick a goal time for a 5K, like 25 minutes, or a goal time for 10K and try and get faster than that hour that you're running, rather than trying to just run further and further and further. You can do that when you're older. Start with 3 runs a week, build up to 30 to 45 minutes in each of those runs, and then start adding some speed stuff in one of those runs, and then make one of the other ones add some distance to one of the other ones. So you're getting up to an hour for one of them, and you're getting some real speed in the other ones, some short fast intervals to work on your speed and your form, and work on that 5K PB or your 10K PB. But just don't go for a half marathon yet when you're only 15 years old. It's just not the right goal. All right, Kim Moorhouse asks, GTN Coaches Corner, I have qualified for Ironman World Championships in East this year. Congratulations. And not sure which bike to use. I have a Canyon Speedmax tri bike like Heather's and a Canyon Aeroad road bike. Both are Ultegra DR2, both work with Zip 808 wheels. Nice. My Aeroad has clip-on aero bars with DR2 shifters. Both have the same bottle layout, 2 on the saddle, 1 on the aero bars. Triathlon bike is more comfortable, more fun, but with the hills and knees and mainly the descents, I wonder if my Aero road bike would be better, especially as I'm confident descender. Please help, thank you. Well, it just so happens I've been out to Nice and I took a Canyon road bike with exactly the same clip-on, same bottle setup, same wheels, same components as my Canyon Speedmax, and we tested them on the Nice course. And that video is coming out pretty soon, so watch out for that video. It'll have all your answers there, but spoiler alert, the tri bike is faster. The road bike is definitely faster on the uphills, but there's just not enough hills on that Nice course to warrant using your road bike for the whole time. The only caveat to that, I would say, and we did conclude in the video, which you'll be watching soon, is that if you are really unconfident descender on your triathlon bike, if you just cannot get down the aero bars when it's twisty and turny or when it's descending, you're really stiff and you're uncomfortable on that triathlon bike, then you may be faster on your road bike simply because it is a little bit more forgiving, a little bit more comfortable, the handling's a little bit better. But if you're comfortable and confident on your triathlon bike, as it sounds like you are, there is absolutely no doubt your TT bike is going to be the faster option on that Nice course. There's just simply not enough climbing. I know there's a lot of climbing, a lot more than Kona, but there's not enough climbing to warrant the small losses on the uphill when you're going to lose even more on the flats and the descents on your road bike. So there's your answer, but watch out for that video. It's coming soon. Okay, Automotive asks, GTN Coach's Corner, if cycling with a power meter was such a revolution, and since almost anybody could benefit from regardless of power levels, how come running with power meters isn't all over the place already? Are there any caveats? It doesn't apply. Should I get a running power meter device like yesterday? I'm a novice aiming to improve my pace, power, and economy. Okay, running power meters, big question, and they are growing in popularity. You will see more and more of them out there. However, there is a big caveat. Running power meters don't actually measure running power. Cycling power meters actually measure your cycling power directly. They measure the power you're putting out into those pedals, into the cranks, into the bottom bracket, whatever it might be where it's measuring it. Your run power meter doesn't actually measure it. Your run power meter uses algorithms to spit out a number similar to that power meter it spits out on the road bike, on your bike, but it's using an algorithm to estimate that number. And they try to get it as similar as possible to those other ones, but it's not a direct measure of the power you are applying to the ground. So run power meters aim to give you a number that you can compare to similar efforts in similar situations, and you can see whether you're improving, and you can prescribe your training, much like a cycling power meter does. But because they're using algorithms, they are not 100% accurate, and obviously each of the power meters use a slightly different algorithm. They weight certain factors like hills or wind or whatever it might be a little bit more than others, and so they're going to give you a slightly different number, which means they're not directly comparable. And also for prescribing run power or prescribing a run program, power is just not as practical yet. I think it may improve in the future, but it's not quite there yet. Also, because run speed is less affected by external factors like wind and the conditions. Super high efforts in running, you can pretty much just use your speed. Wind is not going to change it that much. It's not going to affect it that much. So speed is a pretty good measure. And for lower effort levels, heart rate is a pretty good measure because, again, the external factor is not going to affect it that much. You can just focus on heart rate to prescribe your training and also to measure your training on how well you're going. You don't need the power. Whereas in cycling, especially for shorter efforts, things like a 30-second effort, by the time your heart rate catches up and you realize how hard you're working, it's almost too late. And power meters can give you a direct, immediate measure of how much power you're putting in. And that's why run power meters have not caught on the way cycling power meters have in the world of training. Run power is good for comparing yourself to yourself if you are consistently using it and it's well calibrated and you're using the same algorithm, the same device all the time. But as far as prescribing training goes, speed and heart rate are as effective, if not more effective, still today. And so run power meters are just not quite universal the way cycling power meters are. I hope that answers your question. Okay. Our next question is from Rommel Reyes, our last question today. He says, GTN Coach's Corner, do you agree that running is better training for cycling than cycling itself? I found that when I was training for a 10K run, I felt stronger on cycling and that I can stay at a higher power cycling than usual. Simple answer is no. Running is not better training for cycling than cycling itself. The rule of specificity means that to train for your best cycling, you need to do cycling. However, there is some transference of strength from running to cycling because you're using very similar muscles. You can transfer some strength that you get from running into your cycling legs, especially when you're pushing at those higher powers or when you're getting out of the saddle. Your run strength will come to the fore on the bike. I think what you're finding here is that in cycling, you don't have to push as hard. You don't have to work as hard. So when you're doing a run-specific program and you're running up hills, for example, you have to run hard. You have to use those muscles. Whereas cycling, you can just shift down gears to that granny gear, and you can still get up that hill without actually pushing as much power. And if you're not doing specific training on the bike, if you're not pushing really hard and getting to that high end where you're really working your muscles, they simply won't adapt. Whereas if you do similar on the run and you are pushing to those higher powers where you're really straining your muscles, they're going to get stronger. And therefore, your run training may actually make you better on the bike than your bike training. The answer is, of course, to get on the bike and do really hard efforts, to do specific, really hard efforts where you are really working hard on the bike, similar to what you would be doing on the run or even harder, so that you do get that benefit, you do get that improvement, and you will see your cycling improvement. So the simple answer is no. Running is not better training for cycling than cycling. But if you always slip down into that granny gear when you're cycling and you never really push that hard and never get that heart rate up and never get those legs burning, then running hard where you simply have to get up the hill might actually be better training for your cycling than your cycling training is. I hope that answers your question. I hope that answers all of your questions and you've enjoyed Coach's Corner today. Remember, leave your questions, use the hashtag GTN Coaches Corner below this video, below any of our videos. And next week, we can be answering your questions on GTN Coaches Corner. Thanks for watching and happy training.